By now, it's safe to say that everyone has fallen head over heels in love with Baby Yoda. Well, except whoever's trying to capture him, of course. This little guy has a big bounty on his head, and is taking all of the Mandalorians' efforts to keep him safe. Who could be evil enough to harm this sweet little angel? And could it be the very same person fans were surprised to hear in the trailer for Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker? There's definitely something suspicious going on here, and I think Emperor Palpatine might have something to do with it. Now, the last time we saw good old Emperor Palpatine, he looked pretty defeated. During Return of the Jedi, he blasted Luke with his lightning bolts before his dear old dad Darth Vader stepped in and yeeted Emperor down to his doom. Besides Boba Fett, Palpatine is one of those characters from the original trilogy that fans are sure is going to pop up again at some point. And this isn't just wistful thinking on the part of the faithful Sidious squad. During The Force Awakens, we heard his voice when Rey touched Luke's lightsaber, which was passed down to him from Anakin. He's also mentioned by Luke in The Last Jedi when he gives Rey a quick rundown of Jedi history. And then we got the trailer for The Rise of Skywalker, which let us hear Palpatine's signature snicker for the first time in so long, along with Luke claiming no one's ever really gone. So while I have no shortage of absolutely crazy out there theories for The Rise of Skywalker, Palpatine coming back sounds like a really safe bet. And those are fun too, I guess. When Disney announced there would be a live-action Star Wars show featuring a Mandalorian directed by Jon Favreau and starring Pedro Pascal, fans everywhere lost their minds. So much so that most of us didn't bother to consider why this show was coming out now. Well, other than to earn money by making us sign up for yet another streaming service. Fine, take all our Imperial credits, just give us more Star Wars! The Mandalorian takes place 5 years after Return of the Jedi and before The Rise of Skywalker, so including Palpatine on the show would be a good way of cluing the audience in on what he's been doing up until now, instead of having to waste time explaining it in the movie. It's also helped to generate tons of hype about the film, since it's not hard to see that the internet's interest in Star Wars is at an all-time high. Incorporating Palpatine into The Mandalorian makes sense from a practical perspective, but now let's take a look at how he could fit in story-wise. In the first episode, our main Mando is given a mission to capture a 50-year-old target that apparently nobody else is qualified to obtain. The moment the Mando's life, and frankly mine too, changed forever was when it was revealed that the target was little Baby Yoda. While the identity of the target has been established, we still don't know who exactly wanted him captured in the first place, or why. The client made the request to the Mando, but he didn't seem overly concerned with whether or not the baby survived. He offered double the price for a warm body, but made it clear that he'd hand over the Beskar steel either way. When the Mando spies on the client and Dr. Pershing, he hears the former say, "Extract the necessary materials and be done with it." But the Doctor seems a lot more interested in keeping Baby Yoda alive, even when the Mandalorian wasn't directly threatening him. He protested to the client that he wanted the child kept alive. Could this mysterious he be Emperor Palpatine? What would he want extracted from Baby Yoda? Regretfully, we don't know much about this particular Baby Yoda and where he comes from. Who are his parents? Was Master Yoda really a bachelor living it up on Dagobah, or was that swamp way more exciting than it appeared? As I was saying, nobody knows this little guy's backstory or much about his species. Hence why everybody calls him Baby Yoda. Even though we've only seen small displays of his powers so far, it's clear Baby Yoda is also able to use the Force, which is impressive since he's only 50 years old. Well, it's a lot more impressive considering his species' long lifespan. What does it mean to be Force sensitive, besides the fact that an entire fan base will forever accuse you of being a Mary Sue? It means that Baby Yoda's cells are filled with midi-chlorians. According to Qui-Gon Jinn, midi-chlorians are microscopic intelligent life forms that have been around since the beginning of the galaxy and reside in the cells of all living organisms. Basically, everybody has some of these, and the more you have, the greater your potential to utilize the Force, which speaks through the midi-chlorians. In the prequels, Anakin was tested for this by having a DNA sample taken, and it was revealed that his count was over 20,000, even greater than that of Master Yoda. Maybe Dr. Pershing was supposed to be extracting the midi-chlorian-rich cells of Baby Yoda. It's possible that the client just wanted a sample and not the whole Baby Yoda, while Dr. Pershing wanted to keep him alive for further study. Or maybe because he too finds the little guy completely irresistible. Who knows? Even when Anakin lost big chunks of his body to lava, he still managed to be an extremely powerful user of the Force, which means there were still plenty of midi-chlorians inside of him. Before we take a look at why Emperor Palpatine would want cells from Baby Yoda, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. All so you don't miss out on the latest from CBR. Don't let that YouTube algorithm keep you away from Baby Yoda. Turn on your notifications either right here or from the settings menu if you're on mobile. Now let's get back to some of that classic Star Wars science. So what could Emperor Palpatine want with the midi-chlorians inside of Baby Yoda? Well, there are a lot of options, and they're all incredibly evil. Don't forget that Qui-Gon Jinn believed that Anakin was the result of midi-chlorians impregnating Shmi Skywalker, which frankly raises a lot of moral and ethical issues that I will not get into right now. According to Palpatine, Darth Plagueis mastered the art of midi-chlorian manipulation and even figured out how to use them to create new life. Some fans believe the introduction of midi-chlorians took away from the mysticism of the Star Wars universe. But Plagueis was interested in exploring the science behind them, for purely evil and self-serving reasons, of course. If Emperor Palpatine somehow survived the end of Return of the Jedi, and by now it seems clear that he did, then his body probably isn't in great shape. I'm not trying to Sith shame here, but he was already looking pretty rough in that movie. And his confrontation with Darth Vader probably didn't improve him much. It's possible that Palpatine is trying to track down Baby Yoda in order to access his sweet midi-chlorian cells. Also that he can revitalize his injured body. But maybe fixing up his own body just isn't enough for Palpatine. Maybe he wants a whole new body and thinks Baby Yoda is the key. After all, the Emperor did have a long history of being involved with clones, and it might even be something Dr. Pershing has experience in. If you look real closely at his uniform, you'll see a very familiar looking insignia on his sleeve. We first saw this back in Attack of the Clones when Obi-Wan went to the planet Kamino, where scientists developed clones of the infamous Jango Fett. These clones are wearing symbols that look just like the one on Dr. Pershing's uniform. And that might not be a coincidence. Maybe the Doctor was hoping to extract enough material from Baby Yoda to make a clone, which is why the client thought the original Baby Yoda would be disposable after that point. It could also explain why he preferred him alive, but said that worst case scenario, he would still give the Mando some compensation for bringing back the target's genetic material. If Emperor Palpatine clones Baby Yoda, I have a feeling he's not just going to keep him as a pet. It's likely that he would try to transfer his consciousness into the clone in order to have a blank slate that's chock full of mighty midi-chlorians. You've probably noticed by now that Sith Lords are all about amassing as much power as possible and never letting it go. Emperor Vitiate took this to the next level by continuously expanding his own life for 1,500 years. Considering that he was already pulling off large-scale massacres by the age of 10, you've probably already guessed that his reign wasn't exactly a pleasant one. He mastered the essence of transfer, which in Legends lore is an ultimate dark side force power. Many Sith Lords dabbled in this art. For example, Karnus Moor bound his spirit to a Sith artifact in the shape of a talisman. Then he could simply possess the wearer unless their willpower was enough for them to withstand his influence. The Sith do have a lot in common with Voldemort, since this is definitely some Horcrux level magic. But Vitiate took this to the next level. He wasn't content to skulk around in random objects. He went after living bodies. He controlled various people known as the Emperor's Voice. Even when he didn't have a host available right at that moment, he was able to maintain his essence and his sanity until one was available. Although he didn't reach quite the level of proficiency as Vitiate, Emperor did manage to pull this off in the Star Wars comic book's Dark Empire. It might not be canon, but it reveals that Palpatine could have actually survived his fight with that Death Star shaft. He was then able to maintain his life by transferring his essence into clone bodies, but ran into the age-old problem of them deteriorating too quickly. One big difference between Vitiate and Palpatine's methods was longevity. When Palpatine attempted this little trick, he found that his hosts would age prematurely, thus he was always having to replace them with new ones. Some believe that this was due to the influence of the dark side, while others think it has something to do with the fact that he used totally empty, run-of-the-mill clone bodies. Maybe using a clone of Baby Yoda would be a perfect solution. In the Star Wars role-playing game, Transfer Essence was a usable skill, which only had a range of about 10 meters, so it's not like Palpatine could have just warged into Baby Yoda from a distance. He would have had to have been pretty close in order to make the leap. If Transfer Essence works the same way in The Mandalorian, it would explain what's taking Palpatine so long to pull off his brilliant baby-possessing plan. Maybe Palpatine was powerful enough to hover around as a spirit, or maybe he was fortunate enough to leap into some unsuspecting stormtrooper. Another option is the possibility that he's inside some kind of artifact. and is waiting to upgrade into an actual walking, talking form at some point. I have to admit, the idea of the great Emperor Palpatine skulking around in a household object is pretty funny. If you like your toast on the dark side, try this toaster imbued with the spirit of Sheev Palpatine. So, if Palpatine is up to date on Sith history, and you know he is, this could both explain his plan and make this part of Star Wars lore canon. Using a clone could make the whole process a lot easier compared to using a fully formed person, but he doesn't want to get trapped into a decaying, weakened clone. If he uses a blank slate clone whose body is teeming with midi-chlorians, he could get the best of both worlds. Access to massive amounts of power and a smooth transition. The fact that Yoda's species ages slowly anyway would be a bonus that would allow him to stick around for a long time. Possibly even until the Rise of Skywalker. Even though there will only be 8 episodes in the first season of The Mandalorian, that doesn't mean that there aren't already tons of fan theories. But if you want to talk about massive amounts of audience expectation, let's talk about The Rise of Skywalker. What will be the legacy of Rey, the latest person to use the Force? Will Kylo Ren have a change of heart, or will he go down in a blaze of glory, supporting the dark side the whole way? Or will he be tossed down a pit, never to be seen again? Among the hundreds of theories, there are a handful that involve Emperor Palpatine searching for a new vessel with which to inhabit. Maybe he had his eyes set on Kylo Ren, but we'll decide later on that Rey will be better suited to the task. Establishing essence transfer in the Star Wars canon during The Mandalorian would help incorporate this into the movie. You just can't rush a good essence transfer. Just because Palpatine is going after Baby Yoda doesn't mean he'll necessarily be successful. Or at least that's what I tell myself to make it through each episode. But maybe he's already accomplished enough to bring us to the beginning of the Rise of Skywalker. Before giving up and devoting his life to the one true Baby Yoda, the Mandalorian handed him over to the client in exchange for a heaping pile of Beskar steel. We saw the child hooked up to Imperial technology before the Mando rescued him, and it's hard to say what Dr. Pershing had already accomplished before he intervened. Maybe he managed to gather enough essence to give Palpatine the boost he needed to survive a while longer. Or if the Doctor managed to gather enough genetic material to create a clone, then we could see a much tinier and cuter Baby Yoda than we're used to seeing. It's actually kinda hard to tell if that would be awesome or not. On one hand, more Baby Yoda. On the other, it's only a clone of Baby Yoda with a Sith Lord inside of it. Really hard to say which the better option is here. There are even some fans who take this whole theory a step further and believe that Baby Yoda is already a clone of the original Master Yoda, but there are some problems with this. Yes, the OG Yoda perished during Return of the Jedi, but he literally disappeared afterwards. Some particularly talented practitioners like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Yoda learned how to become one with the Force when they passed away. There would simply be nothing for the remnants of the Empire to clone, even if they did search through the swamp. So the Empire would have needed to attain Yoda's genetic material prior to his passing, and it'd have to be about 45 years before in order for the timeline to line up considering Yoda's age. And if the Empire did manage to get their hands on Yoda during that time, well, I have a funny feeling they wouldn't have let him peacefully retire to a swamp. The idea that the Empire somehow managed to clone Yaddle at some point makes a little bit more sense, but not much. Dr. Pershing would have had to incorrectly refer to him as a he, but maybe he's not the best physician, just one of the few the Empire had left. There's also the fact that Yaddle disappeared after the Battle of Naboo, which could have theoretically given the Empire time to get a sample from her or for her to have a child. But the Battle of Naboo happened in 32 BBY, while Baby Yoda's likely birthday is in 41 BBY, so the dates don't quite match up. Plus, even though we haven't met them yet, there are presumably other members of Yoda's species out there. It doesn't seem too crazy to assume that the Mandalorian will eventually reveal more about them. So there's no reason to jump right to a clone baby or a Yoda-Yaddle love child. All in all, Emperor Palpatine going after Baby Yoda seems pretty plausible, but most of the speculation about his backstory doesn't. And it really isn't surprising considering that George Lucas never explored it and actively stopped other people from expanding on Yoda's species. It's safe to say that all of us Star Wars fans have our own ideas on how we'd like The Mandalorian to play out. But the one thing we can all agree on is that we want more Baby Yoda. As much as it pains me to think of anyone hurting sweet little Baby Yoda, this theory would make a lot of sense. And we'd get to see more of the dreaded Emperor Palpatine. What do you think the chances are that this Sith Lord is the one trying to track down the Mandalorian and his charge? Let us know what you think in the comment section below, and then click on that subscribe button for more videos from CBR. We'll see you again next time.